General Hines, Citadel Board of Visitors, faculty and staff, special guests, but most importantly you, the South Carolina Corps Cadets. It is indeed a high honor and a unique privilege for me to be here today. Don't worry, I don't have a tight speech, and I'm not going to sit up here and read it to you. But what I am going to do is share some common thoughts with a group of people with whom I have much in common. Let me give you some background. My company was started here in Charleston, South Carolina, in the same decade that the first class of cadets reported to the Citadel. In my company, I have the privilege of working with approximately 2,000 employees, which is about the strength of the Corps of Cadets. In addition to that, the majority of those employees wear a uniform each day. In addition to that, they drive about 800 vehicles and equipment across our roadways with big old logos on the side of the doors. They, like you, are always in the public eye. You know, my full dress uniform hangs in a closet in a room that's not even my room anymore. My sword and my diploma are in my office in a frame and a shadow box that over the years they have simply blended into the decor. And I know this is heresy, but I probably wear my ring about 25% of the time. The point I'm trying to make with each one of you today, of all the things that we covet and cherish that define who we are as graduates of this institution, find themselves in the back of our minds, gathering dust. What is it that we truly take away from our time here at this institution? General Rosa understands what it is, because the number one thing that you take away from your time here at the Citadel can be symbolized by a very common device. You ROTC cadets know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a compass. A compass. Because the number one thing that you take away from here is a purposeful direction that makes you a successful leader in life. Because a compass can tell you where you've been, it can tell you where you are, and most importantly, it can tell you where you're going. General Rosa understands that. He wants to preserve that for you and for others to come. As a result of that, he asked Dr. John Palms, who is one of the most distinguished graduates of this institution, to put a committee together to look at the fourth class system, because he wants to make sure that it survives for generations to come. And I applaud him for that. I do. I've read recommendations. Recommendations, not implementations. I've read them, and I think they're important. But they always bring up that one word that we all hate: change. Change goes over pretty poorly in the South Carolina Corps Cadets. It goes over poorly in my company as well. We worry what will happen. What will happen to our proud traditions? And so people start talking. I've had 2 freshmen email me. They're probably in this room right now. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell your names. I may give them to my good friend Patrick before I leave. I'm just kidding. I won't do that to you. But they haven't been here a semester, and they are worried about what changes will come to the fourth class system. And of course, our alumni are just the same. Oh, you can't do anything to the fourth class system. Don't change anything. I'm always amazed at some of the alumni that I know of that are most vocal about how the Corps of Cadets should be run. Some of them, when I was here as a cadet, did everything they could to make sure they never had to assimilate into the Corps of Cadets. But yet they're experts now at it. You know, when difficult times hit us, and we've gotten some less than flattering press lately, we really have, then you're faced with the prospect of change. And when you're faced with the prospect of change, just like any other challenge that comes in your life, you have 2 choices and 2 choices only. You're either going to get bitter or you're going to get better. You're going to get bitter and say, that's a bunch of hogwash, I'm not changing anything. And people like that in this world do not survive. Or you're going to get better. And you're going to lead the change. Change that is inevitable. General Rosa knows that. And he knows that change is part of our continued success. The second thing that you take away from your time spent here at the Citadel will make you a successful leader in life is self-discipline. The ability to do within while doing without. You know what I'm talking about. You go to a party and people are funneling alcohol and you know you have to get behind the wheel of a car. You know what it means to do within while doing without. When you're pressured to do things with your body for social acceptance and false love, you know what it means to do within while doing without. And when you have the choice of being able to be accountable for your actions, or making excuses and whining, or trying to call somebody who can bail you out, you know what it means to do within while doing without. There's a recent graduate of this institution that has done some unthinkable things to children. You've read about it in the press. It's been awful. Started here on this campus and spread into the Somerville and Mount Pleasant communities. People come to me and they say, it's terrible what they're writing about your alma mater in the paper. It's terrible. Y'all send people off to war to die. Y'all send people into business to serve this country and become good citizens. And it's terrible what they're writing in the paper. And I tell them, we deserve everything that is written in the paper. And how that event overshadows us being ranked #1 in the South for public university. How that event overshadows the fact that you went out and did a whole day of leadership and service in the community. It gets overshadowed by that. And we deserve every bit of it. Because whether you're an institution or whether you're a corporation, you're only as strong as your weakest link. The committee report is very clear in what it says about the Corps Cadets, and I believe it, and I hear it from you cadets when I talk to you on a regular basis. It's just a small group. It's just a small group in each battalion, in each company, that is causing the problems that we have. Well, that aberrant behavior by anyone is a poor reflection on the institution. Now, I'm going to give you a little simple thing today to make sure that we stay out of trouble and we never have bad press. I use this with the linemen that I have in my company. It works really well with employees at a corporation of 5,400, and it should work fairly well here in the Corps Cadets. And that is this. It's very simple. You can laugh about it if you want, but it's the truth. Don't do or say anything that you wouldn't do or say if your mom was standing next to you. I'm going to say that again because it's important. It's so simple. You don't even have to pay some consultant to come in here and tell you this. Do not do or say anything that you would not do or say if your mama was standing next to you. You see, if that's the case and your mama is standing next to you, when some freshman is down there doing push-ups, I doubt you'll stomp them in the back and knock 2 of their teeth out on the gallon. If your mom is standing next to you, I don't guess you'll go on a drunken rampage and tussle with the campus police over the course of a weekend. And I guess if your mama is standing there, you wouldn't strike anyone or raise your voice to curse or swear or belittle. Because I can tell you, that which goes on in those barracks in the corporate world and in the world of the military, it will get you terminated quickly, regardless of who you are. And not just terminated, but investigated, criminal charges perhaps filed, and in this litigious society in which we live, most assuredly sued. And y'all see that each and every day. People ask me, they say, in your company, what do you look for in a leader to either promote within your organization or bring into another organization into yours? And I tell them it's very simple and it has never changed. That one trait is good judgment. Good judgment. I would rather have somebody working for me who is not very smart but utilizes good judgment a majority of the time than to have somebody working for me who is brilliant but only uses good judgment 50% of the time. Let me ask you something. Y'all raise your hands. How many of you out there are prejudiced? Raise your hands. If you're prejudiced, raise your hands, please. There you go. Well, all of you are raising your hands. I'll raise my hand too. Because we're all prejudiced. Every individual is prejudiced. Think about it. We grew up in different households with a different parents, went to different schools, brought up in a different environment. We're all prejudiced, and our view is skewed of things that go on around us. The trick is to not let that prejudice that you have manifest itself in the discriminatory words and actions to those around you. You know, there are people who don't belong in my company, and I get them out. I'm not proud of it. And I'll tell you this, when I sit down and do my duty and terminate their employment, there's a relief that comes from it, not only to me, but my entire corporation. And there are people just like in my company, there are people that do not belong here in the Corps Cadets. There are people who do not belong here at the Citadel. But you know what? It's not because of how they talk. It's not because of how they look. It's not because of their race, their creed, or their sex, or the fact that they look nervous, or the fact that they look scared. Or not because they can't run as fast as I can. The people that do not belong in this institution are the ones that choose, and that's an important verb, choose not to uphold its ideals of duty, honor, and respect. You know, sometimes I think we get it backwards. As we go through the fourth class system, upperclassmen, they earn privileges. I was the same way. I was excited the first time I could walk across the quad. I went 3 or 4 days walking on the gallery, not remembering I could walk on the quad. To wear a blazer, to have a parking space, to walk across the parade ground. Those are all things that as we go through the fourth class system, we earn those privileges. And sometimes we lose sight, and this is for whether you hold rank or not, that the only privilege that you earn is the responsibility to take care of those around you that are a part of this institution and uphold its ideals as well. You are in the public eye. And whether you like it or not, your actions on an ongoing basis reflect this institution to the public. You are the lens whereby the majority of the public views the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina. I see it all the time. How about when you're out in public and you're wearing your uniform? Or halfway wearing your uniform? I'm in Charleston a lot, I see it. When Mr. Jim Whetstone first asked me to come down here and speak to cadet leadership last year, I was in my uniform. I have about 800 employees that wear a uniform. And most of the time, I wear that uniform. I started wearing it today, but my mama would have been disappointed if I got out in front of this distinguished crowd in my uniform. But there's a reason I wear it. It's got my company logo on one side. It's got my name on the other. And it is an absolute representation of the company for me and all those employees who wear it. And when I go to Lowe's and I buy a stick of PVC for $5 and the lady behind the counter says, I ought to charge you triple that based upon what my electric bill was, then I know exactly how my employees feel each and every day. Always in the public eye. We can do a better job of wearing that uniform, folks. I can tell you that. You know what happens if somebody's in a broken uniform at our work or doesn't wear the uniform? We send them home, and they forfeit a day's pay. You are in the public eye. I see it after the football games when you get your overnight. And you go racing up I-26. You think people don't see you? Ha! I got you down. All those parking stickers that you have on the back of your cars, and you seniors that put the 3 there, and you have it for each year as it goes out. How you operate that motor vehicle says everything to some outsider about how you respect and uphold this institution. You're always in the public eye. I'm going to tell you about something now that's going to hurt your feelings. We got to do something about alcohol abuse in our society today, and we need to do something about alcohol abuse in the Corps Cadets. Somebody said we need more adult supervision in our barracks. I think we need a substance abuse officer in each one of our barracks. Alcohol is a terrible thing. It stymies war productivity in corporate America, and it ruins lives when abused. I have linemen at my company, and I can tell you this, for a college opportunity to come and work for our company with pay and benefits, probably one of the best jobs that you can get in this area. And I sit them down when they come and I say, listen, you might have to change your habits, you might have to change your friends if you're going to survive. Because in order to operate that equipment that weighs between 50 and 60,000 pounds out there, you have to have a commercial driver's license. And all it takes is one DUI, and that career is over. They're of no use to me without that commercial driver's license, and you can't hold one while driving under the influence. It's part of my job as well. When we have outages, I go out, and I recall one time going out on a circuit outage, and it was a representation in a vehicle that had run into one of our 1,200-pound poles and split in half of all the ages that are gathered here today. And I recall a young man sitting there laughing and giggling beside the road. He was the driver. And I remember looking over at his best friend. They brought him out in 2 body bags. His head was in one, his body was in the other. And then they brought out his girlfriend, who was like a jellyfish because she'd broken every bone in her body. When you've got a good-looking date, you don't go out that night and put a blindfold on so you can't see, do you? When you go to your favorite restaurant, you don't put a clothespin over your nose so you can't smell or taste. And why in the world? Why experience life with your senses dulled by substance abuse? Why dull your senses when it comes to experiencing life to its fullest? Do not put your safety and your future success at risk based upon what's in the bottom of a 12-ounce can or a half-gallon bottle. You're an investment. You're an investment for your family. Be worthy of that investment. They have given you unconditional support. They have given you unconditional love. Be worthy of that investment. They are counting on you. They gave you something even more important, your name. It's like my good buddy Dirk Bentley says, passed down from generations too far back to trace. I see all my relations when I look into my face. They never make it famous, but I'll never bring it shame. It's my last name. It's my last name. I learned the value of family in 2004. There was an ice storm that hit Columbia. There were 155,000 people that didn't have power. The most important thing in my life at that time was my career and getting the lights back on. I didn't go home for a week. I didn't see my wife. I didn't see my 2 kids because the most important thing in my life was my career. That weekend, after a week's time, we finally got the lights back on. I remember sleeping through the Super Bowl that Sunday, and I remember going to work that Monday. And I remember my phone ringing incessantly. Annoyed, I went out in the hall and answered the phone. Voice on the other end was my wife. She was crying. She said, "You need to come to Richland Memorial Hospital right now." I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "It's not me, it's Elliot." Elliot at the time was my 6-year-old daughter. 2.5 hours later, I sat in front of a pediatric oncologist that told me that 70% of the cells in her bloodstream were cancerous. She was diagnosed with leukemia. And I can promise you at that particular time, I didn't care if anybody in the state of South Carolina had power, and it hadn't been my #1 priority since. And I'll tell you another thing, since that day, I haven't had a bad day at the office. You know, it's been said that someone who works with their hands is a laborer. Someone that works with their hands and their mind is a craftsman. Somebody who works with their hands, their mind, and their heart is an artist. Is an artist. And the #1 trait of leadership that you need to learn, and you should learn from being here, is it's got to come from your heart. Because only through your heart can you make a difference in the lives of those around you. You know, leadership is 25% doing the things that you absolutely have to do. For me, it's the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and even OSHA from a safety perspective. For you, I assume it's the Blue Book. That's only 25% of leadership, doing exactly what you're supposed to do. 75% of leadership are doing the things you don't have to do that make an impact on other people's lives. Remember that 25-75. Here's a silly analogy for you regarding leadership along those lines. It has to do, go take your car or your truck and go to your local grocery store and just park in the corner and watch what people do with shopping carts and see how that equates to leadership. There are people that get their groceries in a shopping cart and they push the cart right out of the store and right out of the parking lot and they steal it and they take it home. They're criminals. You cannot be a leader if you can't follow the rules. At our company, we will not even interview you if you have an arrest. I didn't say expunged off your record. I said had an arrest. You want to be a leader? Keep your behind out of trouble. Number two, there are people that take a a grocery cart. They put their groceries in it. They push it out in that parking lot, they push it to their car, they unload their groceries, and what do? They leave the cart right there beside their car. You cannot be a leader if you can't take care of yourself, much less anyone else. I know y'all get tired of the shopping carts, but there are two more. There are people who push their groceries out of the grocery store in the shopping cart. They go to the car, put their groceries in it. Then they take the shopping cart and they put it in the receptacle right there in the parking lot. Exactly what they were supposed to do. What is that? It's 25% of leadership, doing exactly what you're supposed to do. That doesn't cut it in this day and age with all the challenges that face you. That just doesn't cut it. What you look for is someone who takes that shopping cart, puts their groceries in the car, then grabs it after they finish, and in a train pick up all the other stragglers in the parking lot and push them back in the store and put them in line. Why? They did the 75% that they didn't have to do. And what did they do? They left that very common scene in better shape than it was when they first arrived. Think about it. You know, I'll tell you this. My kids know that when I breathe my last, they're to take my ashes and dump half of them on my farm in Calhoun County. The other half they're to sneak in here at night and throw them out there on the parade ground. And that's what they're supposed to do. You see, that farm is where I was born. But inside these walls is where I grew up. When you ask people, you'll say, what's the greatest thing that ever happened to you? Some people say, well, it's who I married. Some people say it's the parents to whom I was born. Some people will say, well, it's the children that God has blessed me with. I will tell you the greatest thing that has ever happened to me is I had the privilege of sitting where you are today and attend this institution, the Citadel, the military college of South Carolina, because it has allowed me to make all those relationships in life all the more meaningful. And that is my sincere wish for all of you. Thank you and God bless you.
Please raise your hand and they will bring a microphone to you. I ask that you wait for the aide to bring a microphone to you before you ask your question, so that everybody will hear it.
What does it mean to you to receive the Order of Palmetto?
Well, it meant a lot. Basically because it had to do with representing this institution. And that's what was important about it. We all, I might have just been one person that received that, but we all have our opportunity each and every day to receive that Order of Palmetto. And it's the difference that we make in the lives of others that we contact. Relationships are the most important thing in life. So I've seen people, just like the day of caring, the day of leadership that y'all had in the community. I thought, you know what? Every one of those cadets should receive the Order of the Palmetto. When I see a young freshman who's struggling academically, and an upperclassman takes the opportunity to school him along, or help him, or show some compassion, then that person should receive the Order of the Palmetto. When we all come together, and I see y'all marching in unison, supporting this institution, and watch that long gray line march by, and every one of y'all should receive the Order of the Palmetto. And when you engage in that 75% of leadership that you don't have to do, that makes an impact on each other, then that, in turn, should be the Order of the Palmetto. I'm not big on awards and medals and things of that nature, but I am big on having them be symbolic of what our duties and responsibilities are each and every day. That's what the Order of the Palmetto meant to me. Thank you very much.
Morning, sir. Thank you for being here. My question, you have definitely higher marks for institution. Why don't you wear your ring very often?
He asked the question is, if I have such a high regard for the institution, why don't you wear your ring so often? Well, first of all, the nature of my work. I tell you, I wear that uniform each and every day with my 800 employees. Well, one of the things that we don't allow them to do is, you can't come and be a lineman or even a gas journeyman and have on a Mr. T starter kit. You can't wear rings, you can't wear watches, you can't wear jewelry that hangs down and can be ensnared around rotating equipment, hydraulic equipment, and certainly energizing equipment. So that's what I do day in and day out. That's one reason. The second thing is, the reason I work at SCE&G, my number one hobby, I think a golf course is a waste of a food plot. I like to hunt and I like to farm, and that's what I do. Those are my two hobbies. And so therefore, they aren't conducive to having my ring out there. And you get hydraulic fluid on your finger, and this ring will slide off in a heartbeat, so I don't want to lose it. So that's kind of the reasons why, especially what I do, not with any regard. But you know what? I will tell you this. That ring is nothing, indicates nothing about a Citadel man or a Citadel woman. It's your actions that speak louder than any trinket you put on your finger with regards to how you revere and uphold and honor this institution. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. How did you get your start when you graduated?
My start came when I was a sophomore at the Citadel. And that's what's unique about this place. I was a sophomore, and I was assigned to be an usher at parade for folks that were coming in here to attend the Citadel. It was Colonel Buddy Carey, who Colonel Atkinson certainly knows, from from Columbia, and his wife, Virginia. And they had another couple with them, John and Betty Warren. John later received an honorary degree from the Citadel. And I was their escort on campus. I thought it was great. I got out of parade. But I took the time that day. I took them in the museum. I took them in the chapel. I took them to Mark Clark Hall. I took them to Jenkins Hall. I took them to Bond Hall. I spent time with them. One of the things that disappoints me sometimes about people in the Corps is you're a little too rigid. You're not conversational enough. That's ingrained in us. Don't speak unless spoken to. But I tried to entertain them that day while I was at the Citadel. Put my whole heart in it. You've heard stories of entertaining angels unawares. Well, that happened to me as a sophomore. I finished up with them. I put them in General Grimsley's car. I drove them over to first quarters to a little reception they had there, and then they left. I remember, flash forward to my senior year. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was either going in the Army, I I was going to go back and run the cotton gin back in Calhoun County. I had no idea what I was going to do. I remember SCE&G being on campus and they were going to interview electrical engineers. Okay? All right, electrical engineers. I said, no need for me to be worried about this. I do run a power company, but I'm an English major. I hate to tell you. I'm an English major. I got plenty of engineers that run a power company, but I'm an English major. And I can assure you that I didn't think anything of it. Someone from the placement office ran over to Dave's hall while I was playing intramural basketball, and he said, hey, SCE&G is here on campus, and they want to interview you. Well, I rushed back to my room, showered, put on my uniform, hauled boogie over there. I walked in. When I walked in there, the SCE&G representatives were there, and they said, we'd like you to come work for our company. I said, don't y'all want to interview me? We'd like you to come work for our company. Can you come to Columbia on Wednesday? I said, well, if I can get a pass, I'll be there. I got a pass on Wednesday, and I'm with Ned at SCANA Corporation, Vice President of Human Resources. And he sat there, and after talking to me for 15 minutes, he said, I want to offer you a job at our company. I said, why is that? He said, John Armstrong Warren, who was chairman of SCANA Corporation, who I escorted around as a sophomore, remembered me. Buddy Terry kept me informed for the record I had here at the Citadel, and the fact that I was regimental commander, and the fact that he was starting a management leadership program at the company, and there I ended up, and there I've been for 24 years. We never know when we're entertaining angels unawares. That's how I got my start. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. You said that the Citadel was one of the biggest things that impacted your life. And I know in a lot of ways the biggest learning lessons we learn from mistakes that we make. Would you care to share a mistake or something that you learned from being here at the Citadel?
Sure. My junior year, I was Regimental Sergeant Major. Y'all go ahead and move me up to go ahead. But anyway, I was Regimental Sergeant Major. And I remember that year, it was a tough year to be a cadet. And the reason it was a tough year to be a cadet is because some of my classmates burned a cross in a freshman's room. Okay? And the outcry from a public standpoint, the scrutiny, the external people that came on campus, the separation that existed between those cadets, is the very reason why I asked you this morning how many of you are prejudiced and what you need to do with that prejudice. That was a mistake that we were a part of. My class was a part of it. And boy, did I ever learn from it. Did I ever learn from it. And you learned from it today. Because you remember, don't do or say anything that you wouldn't do or say if your mama was standing next to you. And it's fine to be prejudiced and have your own views, but do not allow them to manifest themselves into discriminatory acts or words against someone else. That was one I really learned from, and it stuck with me today.
Good morning, sir. If you don't mind me asking, how is your daughter doing now?
I'm a come in and hug your dad. I always ask for somebody to do that. My wife always tells me, God, why don't you? I tell you, when it's over, you come down here. I carry 2 pictures in my wallet. The first picture I have is her 6 years old. She's got her hands on her head like this. After going through 3.5 years of chemo. I mean, it just tore her up. All the hair fell out. She had sores in her mouth. She had sores on her behind. It was very kind of cord cut in her chest. I mean, it was very difficult, very tough. And I carry that picture around with me all the time. I want to show it to you when this is over. The other picture that I have in there, why'd you ask me this question? The other picture that I have in there is her sitting atop an 1,100-pound reining horse when she's 14 years old. She went out to Oklahoma City last year and won the national championship in Western horsemanship. Why? Because God is great, and God is good, and don't ever forget that.
I may be a little bit prejudiced because I come from a little bit upstate But who are you going for? The Clemson Tiger or the Carolina Yardbirds?
You make a good point. First of all, let me tell you, the one thing that you need to do when you graduate from this school is turn right around and support the Citadel Brigadier Foundation. And number one in my heart are the Citadel Bulldogs. I want you to understand that. And I do not miss a home football game. And I come to many of the basketball games, and I love Citadel baseball. I love Citadel baseball. Got a lot of good friends that play baseball. And I tell you, you talked about that leadership, the 75% that you don't have to do. Man, what if the Corps turned out in mass for a soccer game, or a volleyball game, or a baseball game? What would that say? See, that's that leadership that comes from the 75% of things you don't have to do. But in all that honesty, I'll tell you this right now. I told you I was a farmer. I love my Clemson Tigers. Let's go.
We have time for one last question.
No more questions? Okay, well, let me just end with this. And let me tell you this. I'm extremely proud of this place, as you know. But that pride comes from what you do every day to those around you and the relationships that you have with those around you. Sometimes I tell our employees when difficult times come, the only thing we have is each other. Remember that going forward. God bless you. Thank you very much.